Hi everyone, my name is Blessing Samuel, and today I'm going to show you how ethical hackers and penetration testers perform the reconnaissance and scanning phase using Kali Linux. So we'll use only legal lab machines. In this case, the intentionally vulnerable Metasploitable tool virtual machine. So before we start scanning, let's make sure the target is actually reachable. So the first thing I'll do is to get the IP address from Metasploitable ifconfig. Okay, so our IP is here 192.168.56.102. I'll be going back to my Linux and I'll be typing this to ping. So I actually typed this to also see the IP address here if it corresponds with what I got at Metasploitable, and then I pinged. So this is the response I've gotten. So this is actually perfect. The machine is up and on the same network. So you should know that if you ever don't get replies in a real test, the target might be blocking ICMP or be offline. But now on everything is perfect, so we'll continue. Now we can begin the real reconnaissance. So for our video today, we will use three important tools: Nmap, which is a network port scanning; Nikto, which is a web server vulnerability scanner; and WhatWeb, which is a web technology fingerprinting. I will run every command live, explain the output, show how attackers use this information, and most importantly, how you can defend against it. Let's get started. So for Nmap, this is the command I typed, and this took about 3 or 4 minutes for it to start and for this result to come up. So phase 2, like I said, is the Nmap, and it's the most famous port scanner. I'm running a scene scan, which is this SS, with OS detection, which is the O here, and all of these ports, which is the P here. This is quiet and fast and usually allowed in real penetration tests. So I waited for the scan result to come up after a few minutes, and as you can see, many open ports. You can see for FTP we have 21 open ports, for SSH we have 22, for Telnet we have 23, for SMTP 25, HTTP 80, and so on and so forth. Look, it even guessed the OS, which is Linux 2.6.x. So port 23, which is Telnet, let me go back there. Port 23, which is Telnet, is actually open, and this indicates that attacker knows he can try default credentials. Port 21, which is the FTP, shows that VSFTPD 2.34, which we already know this version has backdoor. It has backdoor. So how do you defend in this case? First of all, you close every unnecessary port, especially Telnet here, and use SSH only. Secondly, you keep your services updated. You update VSFTPD 2.3.4. You update it. Keep it updated at all times. Thirdly, you use a properly configured firewall. Use a properly configured firewall. That is, you must use UFW or IP tables, and then ensure you disable version banners when possible. So now we will be proceeding to Nikto. I will type the command and wait for the scan result to come up. So this is the command I typed for Nikto. Nikto is an automated web server scanner that looks for dangerous files, outdated software, and misconfigurations. So I scanned the web server and we found the target port being 80. So it is still running. It is still running. We'll give it some time for it to run down and finish its scanning. So as you can see here, the Apache, which is 2.2.8, it appears to be outdated, which is the older version, meaning that you can be easily targeted. From this result, you can notice that you can actually have a lot of vulnerabilities, and attackers can easily brute force file names. This PHP here indicates that you can be like a common target for attackers to access easily. So what do you do in the defense part? Firstly, you must keep your Apache here, this Apache. You must keep your PHP and all web applications updated. Make sure that they are in the updated version. So now you can see that my Apache is 2.2.8, whereas the current is at least 2.4.54. So you have to make sure that it is updated. Secondly, remove or protect PHP, MyAdmin, and every default pages. Thirdly, disable dangerous HTTP methods like trace, put, delete in Apache configuration. Fourthly, you must use web application firewall, which is mod security, MOD security. Lastly, change default server banners. Change default server banners. So now we'll be proceeding to the next tool, which is WhatWeb. So the last tool is WhatWeb, and this is the command I typed before I waited for it to come up. So WhatWeb fingerprints exactly which technologies the web application is using. This verbose here, V, it gives us much more details. So this is the results we'll be getting if you type WhatWeb command. This is the Apache, the summary. The Apache is 2.2.8. You can see the PHP is 5.2.4. The HTTP server is Ubuntu Linux. So this is basically the summary. The X powered is PHP by 5.2.4, and the country is reserved ZZ. So now the attacker knows exactly which version of DVWA or Mutilide is running. So you can look up exploits for that exact version. The X powered here by header is leaking the exact PHP version, which is actually very useful for attackers. Very useful for attackers. So now, what's the defense part? How do you defend? Firstly, you remove or max the X powered by. This X powered by. You remove it or you max it. And then you also max or remove the server headers. You also remove or max the server headers, which is the Apache, the server tokens, and the header onset, like the X powered by, which I mentioned earlier. Secondly, don't run vulnerable training applications like DVWA or Mutilide in production. Lastly, use security through obscurity sparingly. Use security through obscurity sparingly, but removing banners helps a little. So we've come to the conclusion of my video demo. So with this we'll be able to discover that dozens of open ports and default credentials likely work. Outdated and vulnerable web server and PHP. We've also discovered exact vulnerable web application. So this is why the Reconnaissance first is the foundation of every successful penetration test or real attack. Attackers spend 70 to 90% of their time in reconnaissance, because if they know exactly what you are running, exploiting becomes trivial. So the good news is that almost everything we found today can be fixed with basic hardening and patching. Always remember, never perform these scans against systems you don't own or don't have written permission to test. Thank you for watching. Feel free to ask me questions. See you next time in our video. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, comment and share your thoughts, and also share these videos to your friends, colleagues at work and loved ones. Thank you. Bye. See you next time.